Just a couple of slides to give you some food, how we see and predict the markets in Germany. And I think as an analyst, to be honest, I believe in all these stereotypes and cliches because they are true for 49%, no doubt, that Italians are as they are and the Germans are they are and the people from Great Britain
are inefficient.
It's your way. No, but again, why investment in Germany? I think we can find a lot of these positive things going on. I think what you see here are for sure the positive side of life, sunny side of German economy and all these things going on. What you don't see here is for sure the German angst, the German Volkswagen case, and all these things going on. I think sorry for that. Mr. Schweinsteiger meanwhile moved to Manchester, and I've heard that Mr. Klopp maybe will move also to Liverpool. Thank you very much. Maybe, I don't know. And the good thing is that I don't use Volkswagen here. But on the other hand, I think coming from the serious general perspective, I'm not really sure what's going on within the next 12 months. Because whatever we saw the last 2 years in Germany, especially the case of Greece and all these bumpy situations, on one hand we see such kind of a photo from Ms. Merkel. As an analyst, I think it was a good decision to be more Germish in the decision with the people from the southern part of Europe, one country especially. On the other hand, I think you know what's going on. Last 4 weeks, we'll say the refugee case, which is, to be honest, on one hand, I can imagine that she will get the Nobel Prize. Don't get, no kidding. My gut feeling tells me something will happen, kind of award for what she's decided the last 4 weeks. Negatively speaking, if you talk to the people on the street, her sentiment dropped dramatically the last 2 weeks on that. But again, between politics and maybe the belief of doing something rational, this is again where the German mentality and the cliches are going on. That's over with all these pretty shining pictures. Again, some general topics, which is more kind of a reputation and I think what you've heard here during the whole fair. No doubt that there are absolutely no clouds on the sky from our perspective as German economy on one hand. For sure there will be some skid marks from Chinese effect, some skid marks from Ms. Yellen and some skid marks from Mr. Draghi maybe. On one hand, on the other hand, he promised by August next year printing money for all of us, which causes and drives the markets more than ever. So again, I see now my press release from Catella and from Commerz Real, it will be a fantastic year 2016. Ironically speaking, I think it's 2 p.m. We see a presentation here somewhere called Where the Black Swan is, ? I don't know. Maybe the printing philosophy might be a black swan. I have no idea. But looking on all these sentiment-driven things, it's really a pretty shiny world. Don't get me wrong, speaking rational and analytic standpoint, GDP growth is rising, the sentiments going on in Germany, speaking more, let's say, commercial-driven. But I think we have nearly 2.5% unemployment rate, which is fantastic. And so coming from all these sentiment-driven things the last 4 to 6 weeks, which causes for sure the German angst, or German angst especially, clouds in the sky in Greece and China, oh my goodness. I totally believe in 850 million Chinese mid-class people who want to have the same behavior like you and me, maybe 2 cars, twice time per year on holidays, a refrigerator, an iPad or whatever. This is an enormous amount of investment activities from consumer spending, industrial things, but also on the real estate situation. And especially from a German perspective, I think some colleagues will agree here that we will see more than ever mainland Chinese investors coming not to London, not to Paris, but now quoted and counted, make it measurable also in Germany. And again, I don't want it to be too optimistic as an analyst, but whatever you see here, it's a fantastic environment. From an analytical standpoint, we call it a perfect storm. Perfect storm means there are no clouds on one hand. On the other hand, there is a huge stimulation, and this is the money for sure. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to be too pessimistic, but Ms. Yellen should have increased the interest rate in September. She doesn't that, but I strongly believe she has to do it to give us another sentiment. Again, it's not too optimistic, I'll try to show you today, but it's a rational situation on that. What will happen if she will increase the interest rate? A lot of more money will come to the market again before let's say, the environment gets worse compared to the world before. If you look on the transaction volume, you see all these Property EU newsletters this morning, record, for sure. Totally agree on that. On the other hand, what's really impressive when you talk on the residential sector, which is the booming market, mainly for the Germans than from the people coming to Germany. But again, the core business for all of us from investment approach is office and retail. Don't forget this. Booming situation, residential, a lot of interesting thing, mixed use, healthcare activities. But if you look at the whole cake, it's dominated by 70-80% by office and retail in total in Germany, and this don't change. If we look on the interest rate, on the office yield activities, again, no doubt, 4 years ago, 4.32. Nobody in the room will expect this figure. Don't get me wrong, nobody. I was like, Thomas, do we see the 3 something? Yeah, for sure. We saw the 3 something already in Munich, Q2 this year. So again, I think things were going on. And on the other hand, I see all these statements called we have to be more risk averse or riding the risk cycle. Yep. I strongly believe in development. I wouldn't say development is the new core, but I see a reasonable activity in starting developments. I mentioned this quite ironically because when you go 5 or 10 years back and you start development in a booming situation, no doubt he's nuts. He's crazy, totally no way. Thomas is different these days, and so I really believe in this, beside whatever happened maybe in 2 or 4 years' time on that. Again, from the cross-border activities, you see that, and again quoted this morning, you see that nearly half of all the investments, nearly half of them are coming from abroad. It's mainly US, Anglo-Saxon money. I just look on the source. I don't see the clients, finally, to be honest. So there is a lot of money also from Qatar via London coming to Germany. So if it's Middle East or but it's international money coming in here, and you see it's nearly double the situation compared to last year. No doubt that there are enough property available for transactions. No doubt, absolutely no doubt. And if you see on the top 5 markets going on, and again, situation, dominant factor, it's office followed by retail, and the other ones are, again, a little bit more granular on that. What's important, mainly coming from abroad to Germany, also for the Germans, to be honest, I think what we called B locations, so secondary locations. This is, again, the most interesting environment we are in these days here. If you look on the gap between prime and top and B locations, you see it's 150 basis point different. This is for sure from an analytical, research-driven approach going to Germany, going from Frankfurt to Freiburg or from Freiburg to Flensburg, ABC. This is the main argument, because on one hand, I think it's interesting stories, but speaking honestly and frankly and open, I think we promised the people 5%. And 5% in Frankfurt doesn't fit in the promise German insurance company or a Swedish insurance company or a British insurance company gave the clients. 5% not in Frankfurt downtown CBD. Speaking. So again, there is a huge shift in the so-called secondary locations on one hand. On the other hand, just to give you an indication, some are not from Germany here, there is a tower in Frankfurt, 200 million, and there are 10 properties versus 20 million in Freiburg. So you have to make 10 times more activities to get 200 million invested. And this is, again, where there is no huge, let's say, tsunami going to be in third-tier locations on that. But I see, just as a sentiment, I see more questions. Thomas, do we have any data available on Flensburg, Erfurt, and starting this year, mainly driven by Canary Wharf analysts? And this is interesting sentiment for me, so they dig much more deeper than they've done the last 4 weeks on that. Again, you see the figures, positive environment. And again, a new record this year, definitely. And again, as an analyst, I'm a neutral guy by the end of the day. I give you kind of an overview what could be the potential investments universe for you depending on your risk strategy. So there are overall markets. There is Chemnitz, there is Siegen. Yeah, there are for sure opportunities on one hand. On the other hand, I think what we decided for Catella, for our funds, is when we see the potential investment corridor in Catella, especially in Munich here, is heavily invested in the secondary locations, though there is a kind of expertise for sure, also research-driven things. But there is a lot of things going on, but please look, it's somewhere quoted, let's say, over the 5%. And this is, again, where for sure we'll see a lot of negotiations going on, especially here in the fair. but also by end of this year. Again, there is not a tsunami to be, but there is a high attractiveness from people who have their appointments here at the fair and try to make a stake in Hanover and in Wiesbaden, Leipzig, and wherever. What you see sometimes from a more exotic point of view is, let's say, Schwerin or Fürth or Krefeld. For sure, in this stage of the market evolution, a lot of portfolios things are going on. So you see for sure some headlines called Fürth and Regensburg and Rostock and Trier. Yes, but please note that I've never met, not the last 6 months, an investor coming from London goes to Trier directly. Again, I love Trier, but speaking really rational. So again, what you see kind of exotic or third or fourth tier locations, it's mainly part of the portfolio activities. Again, these are the investment corridors or the locations coming more from the office sector for sure. And again, it's typical well-known B locations. If you are familiar with the German map, well, most of them are Euro, it's more dominant by the southern part of Germany rather than the northern part or the eastern part of Germany. On one hand, if you go to, let's say, Potsdam, but also Erfurt, it's not here on the list, but it's in the corridor. I see also some improvements going on in former eastern part of Germany, but this is just Leipzig, Dresden, and Erfurt, these three, plus Potsdam as a capital of Brandenburg. Okay, last slide, then I'm over. To give a kind of advice in these days, I mentioned earlier on, I totally believe in the evolution of starting now developments, not focusing on the potential market, say, record, whatever, but it's more interesting to find also new tenants and other tenants especially, and please avoid all these old buildings, 20 years old, and the outskirts of the city. I can sell you 10 of these things within the next 5 minutes. What's going on is in between, it's the newly existing property for sure, and the developments, things going on. Developments are more these refurbishment, city-linked activities. These are the two general things. And again, have a closer look later on maybe, but I think it's still an attractive situation we are in focusing here in Germany in total. And again, the vacant properties cause higher risk due to economic uncertainty. This means the skid marks I mentioned earlier on, there will be, from an economic approach, much more stable situation. No decline, but no rocket up within the next 2 years. And again, please note, August 2016, if we believe in Mr. Draghi, then the reign of money will come to a natural end. And now a decision from a lot of chairmen on the board, should we stop now or go beyond further and try to end of July with our activities. Thank you very much indeed.